Good afternoon, my beautiful babes and babettes. I'm your resident active advocate, and I'm late because I've been writing all morning. I'm not sorry. I just got the hardest chapter of my book out of the way, and for anyone who's interested, it was hell because I'm kind of using all of these racial slurs and just really bad implications about my main character, basically, or my main protagonist, facing down some racist jerk. And it's not fun for anybody. And it wasn't fun for me to write. I'm cringing while I'm writing some of this stuff. So, very happy to be through with that, but it's an important thing to understand as well. In terms of equal representation and access, though, I would like to talk to you today about what Lilly left out regarding web accessibility and computer accessibility. So, under the AODA, I had already said that things on the screen ought to be legible to people with visual impairment. One aspect of visual impairment that I did not take into account, because this is pretty much the only way in which I am not blind. Well, okay, visually impaired, I'm not blind. I can still see. But this is the pretty much the only thing I don't struggle with is color. But people with color blindness, if a website is not set up, rather streamlined, rather black and white, well organized, not too much color contrast or color coordination going on all over the place. If it's set up poorly in terms of color contrast, people with color blindness may not even be able to read any of the text on the screen. So there's definitely that aspect to consider. And most websites nowadays are just black on white in terms of, the text on the screen and things like that. But I've read some pretty poorly organized things online. And even my bank's website, where I go to pay bills, the buttons themselves are kind of, in terms of color coordination, they're sort of all over the place. One button will be orange, another will be green, that sort of thing. And I particularly like it when color coordination is predictable and linear. That was another aspect that this tutorial video I was watching had talked about, for things to be predictable. One of the more major problems that a website actually can have is not just that the button will not be labeled if you are a person who can only use keyboard commands rather than a mouse for visual impairment issues or for even mobility issues. But the tutorial video said that sometimes buttons will not appear at all, and that this can definitely be an issue because if you can't access the full website, it's not accessible. So that was another issue he had talked about. But to do my own scavenging, I actually, and this was on YouTube, I turned on the captions for this video I was watching, and it was hilarious. YouTube is, as I learned in disability studies, notoriously horrible for their captioning. And it's real-time captioning. The captions go by as the person in the video is speaking. But the translations can be quite poor. Oh, it was something to do with, he was saying the word doesn't, but the caption came out does it, as two separate words, does it rather than doesn't, right? So if you're hard of hearing or deaf and you're reading those, it's not going to help you. With the ones that I was using this morning, you would get the general gist of things, but they go by quite quickly, of course. So what I actually would like to check on is whether the captions slow down if you slow the video speed. But that too can get daunting because it takes you twice as long or however much as long to get through the content. So that's another issue to consider. When you are, and yes, I'm looking at you because I know a lot of people online or in some form of web design, when you are making a website, and if you have anything on that website that needs captioning, please try to be sure that your captions are accurate to what is being said in real time. Captions that are too slow will confuse people. Captions that are too fast will get disorganized. So both the visual and the auditory and the kinesthetic aspects of a website can all be taken into account when creating a website, and it doesn't just create more accessibility for people with disabilities or for people with accessibility differences and accessibility needs. This also creates a much more streamlined experience for non-disabled users. But in terms of the working field, if your company's website, as I mentioned in a previous video, is not accessible and is not well organized, then you are going to lose out on potential employees. So web accessibility nowadays is pretty much essential to drawing in a whole bunch of different kinds of people, because there's not going to be just one kind of person that every company wants to hire, and if there is, then there's intrinsic and systemic bias going on there, and that should not be present in the workplace or in any place, especially online, because this place is huge. This place is open. This place is pretty much part of everyone's life nowadays. The guy in the video I was watching this morning to prepare for this video compared it to having access to the public library. And people nowadays might go, what's a public library? Because they look everything up online. But he had said that if in getting into the library there's no ramp for the wheelchair user, then they're losing out on clientele. Going along with this analogy, in the same way, the web can lose out on clientele by making inaccessible websites, or just websites that are poorly designed, not taking the spectra of various needs and various disabilities into account. So basically, those are the main aspects that I had left out of my initial video. But if anyone can think of anything else, because this topic is growing by the day, it's so huge, it's so diverse, and there are people out there with much more divergent needs than anything that I've got. Let me know down in the comments if you have ever struggled with anything that I may have missed, or if you have struggled with anything that I have touched upon in this video and the last video on web accessibility. All right, so that is my video for today. I'm going back to writing, and because I take weekends off, I will see you on Monday to round up this little mini series on what Lily left out in regards to the AODA. All right, and by the way, before I go, plug for the blog aoda.ca. Please visit, please read. There's a lot more information there than I can give you in a 10-minute video. And it's very well written. I've used it myself, of course. All right, so I will see y'all on Monday. Have a very good weekend, and if it's snowing where you are, please stay warm. Love y'all. Bye. Mwah.